grab your coffee. It's time for Living with Favor, where we talk about faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. We are here once again with LeAnn. I want to tell you a little bit about LeAnn, but first, I'm Lisa Mosby, your host with Living with Favor. Thanks for tuning in and letting me share a bit of advice on the importance of Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. That's what we're covering today. We are thrilled to welcome the incredible, dynamic LeAnn Lyon, a former teacher turned entrepreneur. LeAnn's journey is nothing short of inspiring. Not only does she navigate the waters of business with the skill of a seasoned captain, but she also does it literally as a proud boat owner. Beyond her professional ventures, LeAnn is a devoted wife and mom, balancing the demands of family life with grace and strength. And if that's not impressive enough, she holds the rank of black belt, embodying the discipline and resilience in every aspect of her life. Join us as we dive into Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. Thank you for being with me. Welcome, LeAnn.
And I'm wiping tears. It's so humbling to hear that. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's wonderful to be here, as always.
And I was trying to trick you with that. I never asked you for an introduction, but then try to put it together and see if that one's acceptable enough for you. So I just have you here for the introduction. I think this is like the 6th time we've been together. We're just going to call it the Lisa and LeAnn show, LeAnn and Lisa show, and keep going from here because I love having these conversations with you. And we had some events here in this country this last week, and it's been on my heart to let's have a discussion about it, but a discussion from a different place, not from the place of politics, not from the place of anger at the country or anger at the leadership or just anger in general. Oftentimes that's where this conversation comes from. I want to come from a place where Tony Robbins talks, and that's the 6 fundamental human needs. The first one being certainty and uncertainty. We'll tackle those together, certainty and uncertainty. But I want kind of your input on what do you find to be certain about our country, living in the United States. How does the stability of the US create certainty in your life, in your work, in your family, in who you are? Before we get into the uncertainty, let's cover that. Let's dive into the certainty of being Americans.
Yeah, that's a great question. And at some point, I'd love to share my story about the discussion I had with Tony Robbins one-to-one about one of the 6 human needs. True.
Okay.
But I think that's a really great question. What strikes me is that, and I'm coming from an extraordinarily blessed life, like extraordinarily. Like I remember being 17 and saying, my life is so good. I'm so, 2 parents, 1 sister, no divorce, no major traumas. I mean, I'm really, 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 really blessed. And to a degree, which is totally true. And the country, in many ways, is also there to give that stability, if you will. Or it should. In my opinion, it should. And it gives a unifying who we are feeling. Again, some of the other blessings that I thank God for is I am a woman in America. I mean, growing up, there are still today countries I would not want to be a woman in at all. So for me to have landed, praise God, to be a woman in America at this time, not 100 years ago, not 1,000 years ago, I would not have made a good pioneer woman. I'm just saying, just nope.
I totally would.
But so I think the certainty of that there is an identity that comes with or should come with any group that you belong to. And I think we need to look at, do we like the certainty of that, or is it giving us uncertainty, and what do you want to do about that?
Are there certain habits or routines or comforts that help you feel more certainty on a day-to-day basis? Coffee.
I'm pointing to my coffee cup for anybody that's listening to the podcast later. Yes, no, I think a routine is a big part of certainty, and I think for many people, certainty can extend to how they feel about their bodies, and exercise becomes very important. And I believe that that's important as well. As a black belt, certainty that my legs were going to stand up, that my instincts were going to kick in a fight. That was very important. I had to trust myself to know that, what I was going to do was going to work most of the time, or that I was going to see what I needed to see in time to defend myself in that case. So there's a lot of routines and going back, making sure that I was physically fit, making sure that I was strong enough to take on that fight. And I think that, if we want to go into what's going on in the United States right now, I think that's where a lot of people are uncertain. Um, the last couple of weeks since the debate, there's been tremendous uncertainty as to our existing leadership, and where that should go. And there's a lot of people shaken up about what happened this past weekend as well. What if? I mean, yesterday's opening of the convention, what would that have been if that bullet had gone a little astray?
Yeah. The influence that certainty has on our decisions too. When we have certainty, when we have income, when we have a home over our head, when we have food in our bellies, versus there's a lot of folks even in this country, that don't have those things. They don't have income.
Right.
They don't, they are struggling. I went for a bike ride, and I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I happened upon a homeless encampment, and I was tired. So I took a break at the local park, and a gentleman walked up, and he was talking to me, and he was so joyful and happy and kind. And yet there's a little bit of, my heart's fluttering a little bit. I was like, okay, I have a bike, and I have my iWatch on, and I have all of this abundance, these blessings. And here's somebody who's struggling in the world right now. But yet we could stand there and have a conversation. And he was talking about the bike. And, I had to push through my fear of, oh my gosh, is this person going to, steal what I have because they have so little? But that was, I trusted that God had me in that moment, and allowed our paths to cross, and we could have this great conversation. And we walked with a little bit, and, we walked past this, encampment of tents and stuff. And I was so grateful in that moment to be able to put my fear on the back burner and just be fully present with this young man. And I think certainty allows us to do that versus uncertainty. Like in that moment, I had so much certainty about who I am and my confidence, but then there's this uncertainty of a world that I don't understand. So I think that we're approaching really uncertain times, and every generation has this. It doesn't matter. You look back, and you've heard presidents, you've heard politicians talk about the uncertainty of our times. So that uncertainty is always there. But how do we use that uncertainty and put the fear on the back burner so that we can be fully present in today's times with the certainty and uncertainty that we're experiencing?
Yeah, I think back to just what you just said, everybody, there's always some level of uncertainty. I guess it's a matter of where it exists. I may get this a little bit wrong, but I think it's pretty close that uncertainty creates strong people. Strong people create strong, let's say, certain environments. And certain environments create weak people who then create uncertain environments. And so if you look at that from a generational way that goes, it's kind of like every other generation's, weak and strong, and every other generation creating weakness and strength from their strength or weakness. Was that too much?
No, that's really well said. That's really well said. I see that again, taking me back to that incident, because it just happened a couple days ago. And living in so much uncertainty, this young man, but but he was incredibly strong and confident and knew who he was and was happy and excited to just see a bike, excited to just have a conversation with a total stranger that, that culturally we are completely different, but yet we could be in that moment.
And to be clear,
And
this is an e-bike, so it's a cool bike.
yeah, it was an e-bike. It wasn't my e-bike. I don't have one yet. I was just test driving.
Yep.
Yeah. That's interesting, but he was incredibly strong and confident and, wasn't fearful of approaching me at all, unlike me, who has all this certainty, has a roof over my head, have money in the bank, and had this uncertainty when I was being approached.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. How does this certainty and uncertainty cause maybe a craving for more adventure or unpredictability in your world? Or how do you see it in the world that we live in?
I'm kind of grappling with that question. Sorry, my words aren't
That's
coming.
okay. Yeah.
Um,
Well, do you crave more adventure, more uncertainty because you have so much certainty with your home life?
Got it. Good question. And, both of us are travelers. Both of us enjoy traveling. I look at it this way. With the abundance in my life, I praise God. I thank God for this gorgeous, gorgeous world. I can't get enough. Like every day, I just want to run outside and go barefoot in the lawn. Like every day, I don't get tired of it. I want to watch the river run past, the base of my yard. I want to, and more so, I want to go see the mountains. I want to go see the other countries and the other environments that are so foreign to what we have here in the Midwest. But, so I crave the adventure. I crave to see more, and I trust in my safety in doing so. And that's the biggest thing is, and I have been in travels in situations of, excuse me, uncertainty. Um, there was one point that I literally didn't have money to get back to my hotel room, and I begged quarters off of strangers, and that was a little scary.
And yet, how did you
And-
feel after you did it?
Well, and I also just trusted. I prayed. I did pray. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, bring the right people to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I had money back at my hotel room. I just had to get back there. I just had left without enough. And, I just had to get back there. So I did. I trusted that it would happen. And I also knew who I was. At that point, I hadn't gone into my black belt journey, but I was already an athlete, and I just knew I could stand up for, and I knew who I was, and I would not put myself intentionally in a really bad situation, but I was fairly certain I could get out of anything if necessary, or that I would survive through whatever happened. You
Yeah.
know, that's the biggest thing, is that trust that even when the worst imaginable situations happen, and they have happened also to me, trusting that there is something on the other side, another thing that will work out for me, and that life is, as we've said, life happens for us, not to us.
Yeah. When the country has a tragedy, like, the recent tragedy and we lost an American citizen, a father, um, how do we band together versus how do we break apart? Oftentimes like in weather related, tornadoes, floods, those kinds of things, there is no division. Everyone comes together and does what's needed. We ship water, we ship food, we show up with the Red Cross or individuals who live near get to those places. I saw that being in hurricane last year in the Orlando area. We were on the outskirts of it, but the people just south of us were pummeled, in our church, right away. They get people together, we bring supplies, we get in the car, we go. And we see that a lot in our culture, and we see that around the world where different countries will ship what is needed. But this kind of a tragedy is a little bit different than those kinds of tragedies when weather strikes. Why is there a difference? Why is it that we can't always come together as a people, as one people?
I really think that it's not that we can't, It's just that at this point in time, there's such a great divide between the two groups, and there
Mhm.
primarily are two groups, that really just it's gotten to the point of sickness, really, that the people that I hate to say it, there's things on the Facebook and stuff saying don't unfriend friends over two people who don't even know your name. At the same time, why continue to let people put stuff in front of you that actually makes you not feel well? So, and there's some out there. I decided that there's some people out there that were putting up some pretty awful things after the tragedy that I thought, I don't need these people continuing to leach their thought processes into my life. And with love, I said, I'm just going to let these relationships go. It's not, I don't have any hate for them. I just don't have any I don't have any extra for them right now either. And
Yeah.
so back to your thing about, coming together, I think both leaderships are calling for that in their own ways. You could
Mhm.
argue effectiveness. I will say that I stayed up late last night to watch, you know, our former president come into the RNC, and I was humbled by watching how humbled he appears.
Yeah.
I've never, I mean, I've been, all of us have seen, Donald Trump on stage just for years and years and years. Have you ever seen him come across as humble? But he did.
Not a word that's often used to describe him. No.
He actually looked humbled, almost tearful. And I thought, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm reading something into this, but I read an article this morning, a couple of them, and across the board, this is what people saw. And I think that humility and that recognition that, I mean, that will change a person.
Yeah.
When you go through something like that, I can't imagine that it can't change you.
Yeah.
And so,
He may not have had it tomorrow. You
yeah,
know,
and
one change
he has to know that.
could have
And
even
so,
been a centimeter. I don't know, what it would have taken. It wasn't much, and he wouldn't have had it tomorrow.
right. And
Yeah.
I think that shift in him may be the biggest catalyst for more unity coming. I hope. I really sincerely hope. Because just saying, we wish him well isn't going to create that unity. It needs to be a deeper, we need to feel it from the heart. And we do feel it from the heart in a hurricane, in a tornado, because we all know it can be us. We
Yeah.
can all imagine having all of our belongings and even our lives in danger. We can imagine it, or some of us have lived through it.
Yeah.
But um, it has to be a heartfelt response. And I haven't seen that heartfelt response really necessarily from both sides, but I saw it in Trump's eyes last night. And I pray that that means that there will be a shift for all of us, for everybody coming, that there can be a greater unity.
Yeah. That kind of leads me into the next human need, which is significance. And I would say if anyone demonstrates significance, it's former President Trump, is I would say that's probably his most dominant of the six human needs is his own significance. And kind of what you're saying is he almost stepped away from that significance, and it was about the country. What's best for the country? That humility that's coming forth is maybe a shift out of significance and into, he has the power, he has the recognition, he has the following, he has a tremendous ability to lead, stand up, and be significant as a leader. But how does significance sometimes hurt us, or how does it help us? Like, weigh in on either side. We're going to cover both.
Well, I'm going to give you just like certainty and uncertainty, there is a counter to significance, and that counter is love.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to tell you my story with Tony Robbins quickly because that's where it falls. is that I was at a Tony Robbins leadership event. There are a couple hundred of us in the room only, which if you know Tony Robbins, there's usually thousands and only a few hundred. And I was towards the back because my daughter was home. My 11-month-old daughter was home with my husband. First time I'd left my daughter, much less for 5 days, leaving her totally in the care of my husband, which is, if anybody here's a new mom, you got to know how scary that kind of was. And I prepared myself for it physically, because I'd been nursing as well as everything else to be at this event. It was a big deal. But I'd also, like, by that point, I knew my daughter, I knew her schedule, I'd written out all the details. And so when we had a moment of a break, I wanted to be in the back of the room. If you know me, I'm always a front of the room person. I was in the back of the room so that I could race out, get to the telephone as fast as possible. We had cell phones, but service in 1990, 2000 wasn't always great, especially when you had a big room of people with phones. So I would get to the pay phone to call home. Okay, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? Da, 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 right? I needed an update. I needed certainty.
Action.
And so, my husband was doing a great job, because all things considered, and it was
There's
really,
that too. Yeah.
everything was fine. In fact, true statement, he potty trained both of our kids on weekends when I was gone. I never went through that. I mean, my husband is a wonderful dad. He really is. And so, anyway, back to the story. I walk back into the room and people are coming back into the room. We're all getting ready. Tony's up on stage already. And he says, okay, he'd sent us out thinking about what's your highest six of the six human needs. And here's me thinking, well, it's obviously love because I just ran out to check on my family, right? And so I raised up my hand because I always raise up my hand. I got to raise this one right now, but it was this one. And but at the same time, I dropped something on the floor. So I'm reaching down, my hand is up, and I grab it and I look up, and in between the two chairs in front of me, I make eye contact with Tony Robbins. Like, we're making eye contact. My hand is still up and he goes, you, and he points, and I'm like, oh no, he picked me. Literally, I'm in the back of the room. And of course, a mic runner runs up to me and, okay, Tony Robbins is talking to LeAnn Lyon, and what's your highest human need? And I said, love. And he goes, who wants to call bullshit on that?
He
So
always does.
at that point, I pretty much blacked out. I did have another about 45-minute conversation with him, apparently. I don't remember almost any of it, but I know it was transformational at a deep, deep level. I did talk to other friends who are around me and I asked them what happened. And they said, that was amazing. It was so cool. So really it was for other people, but it did transform me as well. And basically Tony was like, no, significance is your highest. And I struggled with that for a long time, honestly, because that didn't feel good to me, that significance was my highest. As you know, I have a show on this platform as well. I had an interview with a woman last night, and she talked about embodied leadership, literally using your body to be a leader. And, how do you incorporate your mind and your body into leadership? And I confessed to her that my own cat didn't used to like me. Now, when does that happen? When you're significant. When you
Um,
lead with significance, people and pets know it and they don't like it. Now my cat likes me, but I will tell you, it's been years of work. And she was like, I can't believe you just confessed that on the air. Now I've done it twice within
yeah.
24 hours. But, it's just a reality. We can evolve, we can change. Six human needs to many degrees are innate. The six, everybody has all six of them, by the way. But what you lead with, certainty, uncertainty, significance, love, you can you can make some decisions. And I think but you have to do more than decide. You have to find ways to live it out. And the shift, I mean, you've known me a couple years. I'm sure you see plenty of significance in me still. But I hope that you also see the love side.
That's the side that I know for sure. Yeah. And I think we both vacillate between those two. I know that I'm super conscious of love. I have when I recently closed down my house and took everything out of it, every single room in my house had the word love on it, whether it was a poster on the wall, whether it was I had a little silver ceramic kind of like little, and it said love, and it was in the window in my office. There was little crystals that hung that said love, and every single room in my house had the word love in it. So when people came in, they may not have felt it, they may not have known it, but it was there. They were surrounded by love. And so I try to think that way. Even if you go over to my Instagram page, Lisa Mosby, right now the header is the word love with a daisy spelled out in the sand, because I want it to be in front of everything else, that love and connection. And I know Tony's position is that we need to create balance across all of these, but sometimes one of those is always stronger. One of those is always leading. And for me, I'm often stuck in love and connection. In fact, when I went through a divorce, we hired a Tony Robbins trained coach who was also a psychologist, and to help us, because we wanted to part as amicable as possible. We didn't want to raise our voices. We were together for 29 years. We didn't want to blow that all up, just in that, separation, in that parting, unconnecting, however you want to say it. And so what she unfolded for me is, for me, it was love and connection, and then contribution. I was always in the place of giving, caretaking for other people. In fact, one of the conversations we had was, if I spent as much time working to make money as I did volunteering and contributing, we'd be rich. Now, we were well off anyway. It's not like we needed more in that arena. But it was an issue that I am so involved with, that contribution piece, contribution, growth. I know that there was a time in my life that was all about significance, and other people would perceive it as all about significance. And part of that is my leadership ability. I've been a leader since I was in kindergarten. It was just a natural way for me to step up. I was always a leader throughout school. And now I want to be a group leader. I don't want it to be about me. I don't want to do anything by myself. I want to bring everybody with me and do that all the time. So it really is like a juggling act. You have these 6 balls of the fundamental human needs, and it's like, which one, hot potato, throwing them up in the air. Where do we want to land? How do so I'm going to bring this into a question here. How do we cultivate deep, meaningful connections in our life when we get into those places of significance and we kind of move further away from love and connection, or we have too much love and connection and the people in our lives need us to step into significance and take action and do something? Where do these fall for you, in your opinion, on the development of deep, meaningful relationships?
Well, I think a couple of things struck me on what you just said. Being a natural leader, and I do believe there are natural leaders, and you can learn leadership both. It can go both directions. I think even natural leaders can develop their leadership. Otherwise, John Maxwell would be out of business. I mean, he has, what, 90 books now on leadership. But you can learn more about leadership. You can learn more to be a better leader. You can learn more how to be a 360-degree leader, all the different things. But I think the more you go into leadership, the more you learn it is less about significance and much
Yeah.
more about love. It's much more about connection, because what Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you'll want. Well, that has nothing to do with significance. That has all to do with love. Likewise, though, I don't know that I agree that Tony Robbins says we should balance all 6. I think balance is an ideal that people think we want, but do we ever really want to be completely balanced? It's kind of like being, well, I'm sorry, but I don't want tepid coffee, right? I want hot coffee or I want iced coffee. I don't want mediocre coffee. And if you do mediocre certainty or mediocre significance, what is it? I think people would be confused by it more so, but knowing when and how to step into the
Oh,
different significances. Like if you can never, ever, I mean, another word for uncertainty, by the way, is variety. If you can never step into variety, I mean, your life also becomes pretty bland. Oh, hey, try this, whatever. And you're like, oh no, I only eat, oh, I
food.
only eat orange vegetables. Okay, great. That's all you get for the rest of your life. I mean, it gets boring.
Yeah.
So variety is the spice of
Yeah.
life. Variety is the counter also to certainty is uncertainty slash variety. So we like variety because we like to travel. We like to see new people, new places, new flavors. We're not afraid of those things. But likewise, you have to balance, when to step into love, but also out of love, when to step into certainty.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you love somebody enough, you can't let them keep going the way they're going. And
Yeah,
that,
it's not about balance of it being equal. It really is, how do we, exactly like as you said, it's a river. We flow in and out of each of these places that we need to stand up and be significant. We need to get into contribution. We need to get into growth, and we need to get into love, that place of love. I think love is there, can be there through all of these. That comes from the heart wherever we're at.
yeah,
But he's not just talking about coming from a place of love. I think that there's maybe a different meaning behind love and connection. It's the depth of the relationships. It's not just doing things from a place of love, but actually, how do you engage with people? Is it, hey, how are you today? And then you move on? Or is there a deep connection? When you see somebody who looks like they're down in the dumps, their physical being, is communicating with you. And do you take a second and say, hey, looks like you might be struggling today, or what's going on with you? It's like creating those connections. It's not just coming from a place of love, but also that connection that comes with that is kind of how I see that particular human need.
I just go back to the greatest commandment in the world.
Yeah.
The greatest commandment is love. Love
Yeah.
love God, love people, period. And how do we carry that out? We keep it in front of us. I struggle. I work really hard to remember to put God first as much as I can, and ideally all the time. And I'm not great at that. That's another area of growth for me. Remembering to pray first, then move forward. Let him lead, not me lead. And that's a huge, huge, huge shift because I've been very much a take care of it myself, certainty, significance driven. I think you do leave significance behind when you realize when you put God first. But likewise, if we're called to love God, love people, then it really in some ways does say put people first. Before you think, hey, I wonder if I can, let's say in the network marketing is a big example of this for some people. Many people approach network marketing like everybody is a victim. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use the word victim, but it's true. Everybody's a prospect, right? The proverbial skincare company that will say, who's your ideal client? Everybody with skin. Like gross. That's just icky. Like don't say that. Please don't say that out loud. But if you approach people as a prospect every single time, that's icky. And I can't say that I haven't done it. Um, Stepping back and saying, who is this person? Who are they at their core? And making sure that at least there's a chance what you have to offer really will speak to their needs, their desires, their goals, is a whole different conversation. And
Yeah.
so that's how I say you put love first. You put the other people's needs, goals, love first. And that again goes back to, the fifth and sixth needs, growth and contribution, which Tony Robbins argues is not technically on the needs levels. If you're not satisfied on the first four, if those are out of whack, you'll never get to growth and contribution.
So how do we respond to the challenges right now? Is what happened in the US, in this country, is it a setback or is it something? I mean, you said you've already maybe noticed some humility in former President Trump that perhaps we haven't noticed before. At least we haven't noticed on a public in a public forum.
Mm.
That I think that resonates growth, right? When we start to see the changes coming out of tragedy or the changes coming out of things that have happened. How can what happened in this country turn into growth? Like, what behaviors should we be looking for in the people of America? What behaviors should we maybe want to make for ourselves? What kinds of things, how should we step into this differently than before it happened? Maybe more compassion for, the other political party, wherever you are, whichever side you're on. How do you show more compassion for the other side, the side that you're not on? What do you think about that growth in coming out of this?
I really think curiosity is the word that's coming to mind. Like,
Mm.
stay curious. Because, and we should always have been curious. If you approach things with a curiosity, I think it's hard to judge and be curious.
Mhm.
Judgment, I think, comes from a place of certainty. And so, if you're so certain that you're right, that your candidate is the only one, and whatever else, um, you can it's really hard to come together. So stay curious, and I think it's way too early to see where this is going to go.
Yeah.
Like they said, I mean, last night, it's been at that point last night, it was 52 hours since this whole thing happened. 52 hours. I mean, when I've gone through tragedies, I'll tell you what, 52 hours later, I was still crying. I
Yeah.
was still going through stuff, right?
Still in shock. Yeah, I can't
Mm.
imagine, how he can be present,
And so,
fully present the way that, and show up and be the leader and stand there.
and that said, we also don't know where and what he'll be at in another 48 hours or another week or two. We
Yeah.
don't know. And that's where, for better or worse, and depends on where you're at with the whole thing, he may go right back to the person that we've known for a long time, or he may never go back to that person. I was struck by the Bible verse that came up this morning in the Bible app, which is that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And I have to think, where is that? Romans 10:13. I have to think that a near death experience like that makes you realize, if you hadn't been, and Trump, does say he is a Christian, and people can
Yep.
debate that all day long. But I know that he called 40 leaders in to the Oval Office to pray over him when he took office. And I
Oh, I
believe
didn't know that.
that no other president have ever done that. He actually asked for um, those leaders to show up and to bless him and to bless the office when he took office 8 years ago. So, is he a Christian? Yeah, I don't know the man, right?
Mhm.
Um, do I want him to be? Yeah, I want Biden to be too. I want, you know, that's we're Christians. We want everyone to be, let's be
Yeah.
fair. But to really truly step into and call on the name of the Lord, it says that everyone, whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord will be saved. That means everyone who does. And then comes the hard work, though, to step into it, to show it, to demonstrate it. And that's what we don't know. I'm pretty sure, well, we know for sure that Trump has come up from this saying, I was saved by God. So he's definitely seen that this was a grace that he stands here today at all. What he does with that is the next, we don't know. So curiosity. We just need to stay curious. And I think both sides need to stay curious. Everybody needs to stay curious, about, and I'd like to think I've always been curious. I don't just go with one thing. I'm like curious. Okay, so how is this? How is that? Now
Yeah.
there's a new VP person. I'm curious. But I know there's people already out there saying he's the next devil incarnate because he believes this one thing. And I'm like, guys, check out his story.
Yeah.
He was the victim of what did he said in an exclusive interview last night that I watched. He was the victim of domestic violence. But people are out there saying, you're calling for people to remain in relationships where domestic violence exists. He's like, why would I do that? Why would I do that? So, don't be so quick to judge. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a Bible verse about that too.
Yeah, I didn't know, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Boy, you're just opening my eyes to all kinds of things.
Yeah, he
Looks
wrote
like
a
I have
book.
some
He
research
wrote
to
a
do.
book, and it's already been made into a movie. So it might be a 2-hour movie. Oh, by the way, Netflix already has it up. Surprise. I'm sure everybody has it up right now. Um, about his life story. And I'm very curious.
Yeah. Very curious. I hear myself saying that a lot. I watch interviews and I ask that question. I'm curious and lead into, to extract from people as, both of us do interviews on our shows. We have to be curious people to be in this seat, to be on this side of the conversation. I want to land on, contribution. How do we give back to our community, to the world at large? How can we make a difference in the lives of others right now, getting out of our own way, putting kind of our emotions and feelings on the side, like temper them down a little bit and be able to get into conversation like this. We shifted gears today because of the things that happened late last week. It was like, I want to talk about this. I want to come at this from a different perspective. So thank you for engaging in the conversation with me and talking about this and how we don't have to be angry or fearful. We can be curious and we can say, what's the good that's going to come out of this? There's enough tragedy in the world. Let's not focus on the tragedy, but let's focus on, blessing the family that lost their father and blessing those that were injured in this and blessing and praying for us as a people in the United States of America. And how do we give back to our community? How do we give back to the world? And how do we make a difference in other people's lives? And how can this actually be a launching pad to do it? It could be for us, not being done to us. You and I, you mentioned it already. We say this all the time. Things don't happen to us, they happen for us. How did this happen for America? Where would you ring in on this?
Boy, if I just give my personal opinion, I really believe this happened for us. I believe that there was way too much certainty and significance, and that I really, literally, in the morning, my first thing is I open the Bible app. This morning, my first thing was to pray and just say, just God, please continue the spirit of humility, because that I think will make the biggest. I just pray, everybody, just pray a lot right now. Pray for our leaders, pray for all of our leaders. We are called to do that. That's scripture as well. There's so much in scripture saying pray for your leaders, whether or not you like them. It is never okay to pray for harm for other people. And yes, people might say, well, the Bible's full of violence. It is. It totally is. But it's not okay. It's not in the New Testament. Nowhere is it say it's okay to pray for harm. And so don't. Pray for humility. Pray for love. Pray for a continued ability to come together. There's going to be a speech on, Wednesday from Vance, Thursday from Trump. Um, Everybody's expecting it to be a very different conversation. And I pray that it is, because I see also, where, why I understand why people really have an adverse reaction to that man. And
Yeah.
I pray that personally, I've had very adverse reactions as well. But I pray that there
Well,
can
on both sides, on both sides.
on both
They're
sides.
out there, they're in the political wave. You can't help but have opinions on both sides, good or bad. You see
Right.
their entire lives.
Yeah. And even as far as Biden goes, pray for him, pray for his family, pray for his decisions, and where they need to go, and the best decision for them and for the country, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't if we're not in the position to do something about it specifically ourselves in our lives, then pray for those who can. And that, in my opinion, is the only and best way that we can move forward right now. And then carry on in your own life. carry on in your own life, lean towards love, lean towards contribution. The difference between contribution and growth is personal and contribution is for others. So growth,
Remember, we have
by all
2
means.
ears.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 ears, one mouth. Do a little bit more listening these days and a little less confrontation. Share your opinion a little bit less. Let's just try to listen and wait to be asked. I think that's a big part of it is you look at social, unfortunately, my Facebook accounts have been hacked, so I'm not looking at social media all that much, but there are other ones, other places where I can check in and just watching the comments and watching some of the anger and the hatred that's been spewed just about this whole situation and the outcome, the different outcomes that people were wanting to happen here. We don't need that. We don't need that. Let's start to come from a place of love all around this. There's so many people who are affected in a negative way, and the country, when these kinds of things happen, it weakens us as a country, it weakens us as a people, and we can choose for it to be, a strengthener to come together versus to be torn apart. So that's where I want to leave this. How do folks get in touch with you and tell us about your show?
Yeah, so my show is on Mondays, 4 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. It's called Lead with LeAnn, and the idea is that I bring in leaders and we just talk really about their lives more so. Although, we'll exchange stories as well. So you can definitely, if you listen long enough, you'll know my whole life story as well. But talking about, what does it take to raise up a leader, to become a leader? What are the transitions that you make through leadership? And it's really been a joy to do this for now over a year, going on a year and a half. I wish that I honestly am looking at expanding how much I'm doing that because I think there's a lot to be said about that, being curious about other people's journeys. And so I'd invite anybody to come to that. It's also live on winwinwomen.tv. If you want to listen to past episodes, you can hear Lisa's and my shows almost everywhere now. Look for the channel called Win Win Women on Apple and Spotify and even Audible, I found out. Yay, YouTube. But look for the Win Win Women channel. We're there. And then Lisa has channels. I have channels on YouTube. So you can find our shows there as well. Otherwise, look for me at leannlyon.com. Unusual spellings of both names, it turns out. LeAnn has 5 letters, Lyon has 4 letters. People love to add extra letters into my name. And there's a lot of information there. And you can find me at LeAnn Lyon on Instagram, as well as I have several other Instagram and Facebook accounts.
Fabulous. And again, thank you for being with me today. And, sometimes these conversations can be risky, and I know you're putting it out there, but everything that you heard here today, it's our opinions. We just wanted to open the conversation. So take from it what serves you, leave what doesn't. We hope we didn't offend anyone. That was not our intention. It was just to have a conversation. So LeAnn, thank you for joining me in the conversation. And I can promise that LeAnn will be back with me because she's one of my favorite people in the world. We have these conversations in our accountability calls every single Monday. So I've started bringing her in here to say, that was good information. Oh my gosh, that was so enlightening. Let's share that with the people that are watching our show. So I will leave you with this. If you need a bit of advice on your business, how to expand or start a business, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, that feeling that you want to give back in some way, I would love to support you in using social media. So let's discuss your business today. You can go to lisamosby.com. That's Lisa, M-O-S as in Sam, B as in boy, E-Y.com, and click on book it to grab 30 minutes with me. And we can talk about the idea of entrepreneurship, exploring what it would be like to step up your social media game. And I'd be happy to hear your story because I'm always curious, just like LeAnn. Thanks for joining us today. We hope to see you live on the next episode. Feel free to join us. Otherwise, as LeAnn said, check out all the replays at winwinwomen.tv. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.